Well, hello, my name is Roger Winters. I was born in Terre Haute, Indiana on March 11th, 1945, just before World War II ended.
Wow. Those are pretty interesting times, huh?
They were very interesting times. My father that summer worked at a place called Los Alamos, New Mexico, as a construction worker. I still have the certificate he received from the Secretary of War congratulating him on his contribution to the building of the atomic bomb, helping to bring a swift conclusion to the war in the Pacific, it said, and saving countless lives.
Wow.
So it was, I guess, my link to the bomb. People felt differently then.
Yeah. How do you feel about that now?
Well, I think it's a regrettable development, but I think it's probably an inevitable development given the technology was there.
Sure.
There's a lot of controversy whether it was necessary to drop it on Japan, but I was too young to have participated in that discussion.
So, did your father, did he solely work in New Mexico, or was he kind of back and forth?
No, he'd gone there for work. He was too old for the draft, so he didn't serve in the military. And work was hard to come by sometimes during the war. And so his brother called him, my Uncle Roger called him to come down to New Mexico because he had found work there. It was secret work, but it was just basically construction work. He ended up in sheet metal, his long-term career. So,
when did you kind of find out I'd say the severity of your dad's work, the real influence?
I think didn't really understand it until I was a teenager or something. He didn't talk too much about it, but interesting times.
Yeah. How do you think that made him feel?
Well, I think he took some pride in being involved in something so large, so important. He was very much a religious person, so my mother, I think, helped bring him back to the straight and narrow, if you will, as a young man when they were married in 1940. My brother was born the next year, and then I was born 4 years later, and they were by then very involved in the Church of Christ, which was a family tradition, and that had been in that denomination for a long time. They'd grown up on opposite sides of the Wabash River between Illinois and Indiana, and then after I was born, my mother had cancer, and she lost her left leg to it, and then lost her life to it by the time I was 2 years old. So my father remarried another person from Sullivan County, Indiana, when I was 3 years old, and we spent many times on the farm of her family farm, and many Christmases and holidays and summertime on the farm. So when I first got to know that family, they didn't have electricity or running water, so I did get a little sampling of the 19th century life there. And so my roots are firmly in the rich soil of the Midwest, I guess. And I like basketball and lots of other Indiana traditions. And in fact, my father and I, during the times that we were unable to talk about things like religion or politics, we could always talk about Indiana University basketball teams because we were both fanatical followers, and I still am. My dad passed away in 1980. So it was a good family. A surprising number of gay people came out of my mother's side of the family. That is, out of a total of six sons born to my grandmother's children. The three older of the sons in three different pairs were straight, and the three younger ones were gay. It was very odd. But it did give me one sense that I wasn't the only person in the world. I knew at least one or two others from the time I was small. So,
how old would you say that you were when you kind of realized that you were quote unquote different?
Different, about 4 years old. I was caught at 5 years old playing with a boy up the street by his dad, and he took us down to my house, and when he let go of me, I ran into the closet to hide. So I guess I may have invented the closet. And he talked with my grandparents and my dad and stepmother. And I came out later to dinner expecting holy hell to to pay because I knew it was not an approved thing, although I didn't have the rich appreciation of the rationale of homophobia and why it was so awful. And I came out to dinner, and it was a very quiet dinner that night. And no one ever said a word about it, ever in my entire life. So, in reflection, I think that was probably fairly reasonable, since they were relatively young people who didn't know how to talk about sex among adults, let alone with a child. So, and to be sure, they never did talk about sex in the course of my lifetime. So they left that to the schools and the streets to teach us.